What is up, Facebook land, and of course the Unleashed community? I'm so excited we're back doing the live episodes now. Someone was supposed to tell me, they said, hey, you're supposed to say it's like season 3. I was like, I don't know what that means. And they're like, it's season 3 for your thing. I'm like, I have seasons now? Right? Like, you're getting official when you got seasons. I need one more, and then I made like a whole year worth of seasons. All right? But I'm so excited for this one, and I'll say whatever season they want me to say just to be able to get this one going. And I don't do typical intros. I'm not like the guy that's like, Jeff here has sold millions of dollars worth of shorts and MMA equipment, and because no one really cares, I mean, other than Jeff probably, and then the people that bought the stuff from him. So probably a lot of people. But I like to do the intro of the person, right? Because there's a bunch of people out there selling a bunch of things, especially on Clubhouse, as you can tell by their bios. People out there selling all kinds of stuff on Clubhouse, but people are killing it. Clubhouse introduced me to so many more people I didn't know existed. But why I wanted to have Jeff so bad and why I really dig this dude. And today he said he liked me, which was like a huge thing for me. I was just like, good, he likes me because like everybody here thinks I have like this man crush about this dude. And I was really hoping to do this one in person, but Canada won't even open their borders for either of us to go anywhere towards each other. So we're going to do it this way.
This is already getting good.
Because this is the best way to do it, as in this year. All right. And why I really dig Jeff was, first, I think Jeff is the creator of the most overused word in 2020, which is pivot. I think he actually created that. His life is all about pivoting in the direction that he wanted it to go in to create the life he wanted, which I think is super dope, how he owned his life way before I did. So I'm like, damn, this dude was way better than me early. I got to learn something from him. All right. And the amount of this dude just shows his heart and love, the way he is as a father, the way he is as a man, the way he is with the community of people that he cares about and in areas that he cares about, really just spoke to me in a way where I was like, this dude's really shit, and he really cares about what he cares about, and he's willing to show it. This dude was very authentic and very real. Every conversation we had about what was going on in his life, what happened, what made him adjust, what made him change, and it wasn't any of the sugarcoating, just here's a good story, boom, I'm amazing. Right? Which, don't get me wrong, I love the Hallmark Channel, but everything's the same on there, and I don't like it. All right. So I literally said I love it, and then I don't like it in the same thing. You can tell I was trying to be nice and then hit him with some reality. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce the dude. All right. I call him, it's like everybody has like a title with me, like my guy. He's my dude. All right. And that's Jeff Lopes. Brother, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're an extremely busy man, so thank you so much for taking the time and coming on with us and chopping it up with me.
I always got time for you, Michael. I always got time for you, man. It's exactly what you said, man. We've built a quick little connection, and I think we're very aligned on a lot of our paths and our hustle, and just in general, like just how our mindset of something you said before we started, like you're the type of person where something goes wrong, you got to fix it yourself. I'm exactly the same. I need to be the hands-on, the fixer, and I've always been like that. So I think that's just a natural trait that makes you and I and anybody that are in the similar paths accelerate and really succeed to be at a different level, right?
Dang right. So before we get into the boring part, right? No, actually, before we get into the exciting part, let's get over the boring part. Tell everybody a little bit about you, who you are, what you're about, for the 3 people on earth that don't know who you are. Other than you're wearing that Blue Jays hat, which is still getting me. But other than that, let everybody know, other than being a Blue Jays fan, let everybody know about Jeff Lopes and who he is.
Representing Toronto, Canada here. My name's Jeff Lopes. I've been an entrepreneur for 25 plus years. Actually, prior, I started my first company really at 17. And I've always been about building things, getting bored of them, and exiting them. And I've done that for years and years. And then at 2006, I was really passionate about martial arts, doing martial arts, participating in it for years and years. I saw the whole uprise of the whole UFC and all that, and I jumped on the bandwagon. I created a company called Kimura, where the name of the company was created for the longevity of the company, because I, like all my companies, I thought of an exit strategy right off the bat. So I built that company up, and through years and years, I never ended up selling it. 15 years later, this January 20th, 2020 was actually our 15-year anniversary. So that has been a fun journey, and that company has allowed me to focus and build other things like real estate. I got a decent real estate portfolio of vacation and commercial real estate through a company called True Blue Homes I created. And I'm in the process right now of building out. We should finish this summer a 16-acre cabin resort so we can run retreats and stuff out of. So I'm a little everywhere, and 2020 was, like Michael said, a year of pivot, where I took my experience of coaching entrepreneurs for the last 3 years, and I really honed it down and focused on creating a platform. And my passion was fatherhood. I love entrepreneurial, working with young entrepreneurs. So I took my fatherhood entrepreneurial experience and I packaged it together in a program called A Man's Purpose. And that's where we just did a soft launch a few weeks ago. And then through the process, building podcasts, author, lots of changes in 2020. That's me in a nutshell. And the most important thing I forgot to say, proud dad of 2 amazing kids, and I've been married for going on to 18 years now.
Dude, I love how like low-key humble you are, right? Because I'm like, I learn about you. I'm like, this dude, he's like everywhere doing everything. You're just like, hey, like I have this little company and like I like people. I'm like, okay, right. So let's go and listen. I know we didn't really we were talking about everything but doing this show before we started doing the show.
Yeah.
All right. So what I love to do on here, right? We just love to be real and raw, right? Talk about real things. Go through the journey. I always say like typically when we come on here, we like to laugh, which, I do at weird things, as you already suggested earlier. I just laugh. And then we like to think, and we like to, sometimes I don't know if we like to, but sometimes we actually even get to cry, right? Yeah. And I love people already in showing some love. Like there's Margaret, there's Maria. So thank you guys so much for checking out the show and checking out Jeff and getting to see him and know him, what he's about. So listen, let's go way back, right? So Jeff coming up, were you like, bro, I'm going to create MMA wear and equipment?
No, I mean, it was just,
if you said yes to that question, I was going to freak out. I was going to be like, really?
I always found, you know what? It was one of those things, Mike, where it just always constantly finding passions, things that I had interest in. So I knew if I had a passion, we tell every entrepreneur, if you don't have a passion for something, it's hard to be great at it, right? So finding your passion, I would find a passion, and then find a need in that market for that passion, and then I would accelerate and build into a business. And I did that. I mean, I built a couple of gyms. I exited those. Like I've always been in a mission of just creating things that I enjoy doing. So I know if I could wake up on a Monday and know I'm going to work, I'm going to enjoy what I do, right? And that is the whole passion, the whole idea of being a great entrepreneur.
Dude, you said something before the show started. You were dropping all kinds of bombs then. I don't know what happened now, but you were dropping all kinds of bombs. No. You said something that really resonated with me. You're like, I got to be able to put my head down on a pillow.
Yeah.
All right. Like I got to be able to rest.
Being authentic, right? I mean, we live in a world where there's so much fake. I don't know if you can swear in this podcast or not, but there's so much fake. There's so much fake crap. And with social media, with Clubhouse now, you don't know who you're talking to. Everybody's a millionaire or a billionaire. There's so much fakeness. So I try to lie myself, and I try to keep myself as authentic and as vulnerable as possible, because I want to be able to lie my head on the pillow every night and know that I haven't screwed nobody. And that is something I've been able to do for 44 years, knock on wood, and keep doing. And being authentic is something I think is a characteristic that we're losing with social media, because we live in a society where everybody's living for that one moment, that one like, that one comment on their social media. So it's just so much fakeness, right? It's all about posing pictures with cars you rent, or renting a jet and hire a photographer with 15 outfits and doing a photo shoot. And then now you have the next year of traveling pictures on social media. It's so much of that, right? So being authentic and aligning yourself with people that are authentic is so valuable and so true. And that's something I try to do every single day, is be as authentic as I possibly can and align myself with people like yourself that are authentic and real, and knowing that everything I'm producing, everything I'm saying is me, and there's no sugarcoating about it, right?
I love that you said that in such a world right now where it's Instagram lifestyle, right? All right, all right, it's like, how many pictures can we put up to make us appear like something's happening and we're living this life? And it's like when I think something gets confused sometimes when I talk about all the times that I've made mistakes or failed, right? Or came up short or risked a whole bunch and lost a whole bunch, right? That's not to boost. That's because I want to show that, like, if we're here, anyone can be here.
100%.
All right. Like I always say, like, I don't have a special DNA. Like I didn't get bit by a spider and I can do some crazy shit. I wish. But other than the whole, other than the whole getting bit by a spider part, the rest of it's pretty cool. It's like, the more we can humanize this space, the more people are willing and believe that they can get in, that they should be in this space as well. All right. And it's just going for it and hard work. So
I think that's the big thing you just nailed on the head right there, is the hard work, right? Is how many people are willing to do the hard work. Mm-hmm. That is the issue. And I find a lot of people, we get this question all the time, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times as well, is are entrepreneurs naturally born entrepreneur, or can you be taught to be an entrepreneur? I believe you could teach somebody the tools, you could lead them the way, you could grab their hand and guide them. But when you leave, are they going to be real entrepreneurs? Or are they going to be those people at Tony Robbins galas putting their hands up in the air and screaming for a weekend and then go back to their lives and everything goes back to their 9 to 5, right? So you have to, it's true, right? I'm just being as authentic as I can, because there's a lot of people that have the dream of doing it. They see somebody else do it. They believe they manifest themselves into doing it, but they don't have the work ethic to continue the process. Because being an entrepreneur is not a 9 to 5 job. Being an entrepreneur is a 24-hour job. You're constantly going. Like, it's be as real as I can. I put my family first, Mike, in my schedule every single month. No matter what, my family schedule is first. But I could honestly tell you, since March 18th, 2020, even yesterday, I have worked every single day since March 18th. How? Why? Because I realized there was an opportunity to really quickly grow into different areas and pivot. And I think a lot of people took 2020 as a step back. And a lot of people to victimize themselves, because we live in a society that people are awarded to be victims. And I see this all the time. You go on social media, you post something saying, I just lost my job. You're going to get 30, 40, 50 likes, comments. You post, I just got a new job, you might get 1 or 2 comments, because you're awarded to be a victim. So 2020 allowed a lot of people the opportunity to be victims. And that has really put a lot of people back. And the people that are true hustlers, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call it, are the ones that just skyrocketed and didn't look back. Right. And a lot of people say, how can you say that you've had such a great 2020 when some people suffered? I'm saying that because by me scaling myself out, like you said, we talked about on my podcast, when I get to the top of the mountain, I'm going to be able to bring a lot more people up there. Mm-hmm. So I have zero regrets saying that I've had an incredible 2020, because I'm helping and networking with so many other people and helping people get to the next level now.
Damn right. Dude, I love the way you said a lot of what you said. I wish you said something I could argue with, but you haven't yet. I'm still listening. But one of the things I said, like, and I completely feel the way you do. It's like, entrepreneurship can be learned, right? And Jeff Newman said something like hard work or working smart. And I think there's a piece to it where it's both, right? It's like how did we learn to work smart? We applied theory. We didn't just learn theory, right? I think a lot of time we spend, and something I did after I made a mistake in business and lost a lot, I became the constant learner, right? I was reading all the books, I was watching all the videos, taking all the courses. I was doing them all. Problem was, I wasn't doing any of them. I was just doing them, right? I wasn't implementing any theory. I was just getting theory. So I was great for conversational piece. I could tell you all what the cool book said, all right? But I didn't apply any of it to my life. I didn't apply any of it to my business yet, right? So everything was still going in this trajectory, but I knew a whole bunch of stuff. So I think there's a dance.
I think a lot of people that don't, like you said, there's so many ways that we can learn nowadays. We live in a society, live in an era that you go to YouTube and you probably learn more on YouTube than you would in a university. So everything's out there to learn. And I think what you said, a lot of people will sit there and learn, intake, indirectly through mentoring or directly through mentoring, and then don't apply it. And why they don't apply it has nothing to do with not knowing how to apply it, not wanting to apply it. It has to do with one simple word: fear of failure. And I think a lot of people don't take the next step because they're so scared of failing, because that fear is playing in their back of their head. And it's that fear, once again, of my family, what my family's going to say, what my friends on social media are going to say. It's essentially that mindset of that fear of not being able to succeed. And I think the top entrepreneurs have zero fear. We're all going to fail. Don't get me wrong. We're all going to fail. I failed in businesses. There's so many areas in my life that I've situated and I passed, and I'm like, what did I just do? I think we all go through that, but it's being able to recognize those and being able to not let that happen again is the individuals that will succeed, right?
Right. And I love what Jesse said. That's a perfect Clubhouse influence right there. Learning theory so you can talk theory, but don't know how to execute it. Right. And I love that because that is such the Clubhouse theme.
Yeah.
And Jesse Smith, by the way, Jesse Paul Smith, he has he just had an amazing summit. He runs the nationwide the international dance competition. So awesome dude. I met him a couple of times. First time he had a really nice suit on, and I felt a certain way about him. But after getting to know him, I'm like, all right, he's a great dude. But at least I'm honest, right? But it's like you can learn everything there is about business, right?
Yeah.
You can
100%.
learn everything there is about business. There's the thing that we talked about that I think you said is the X factor, and I call that the grind mode. Yeah. What's your grind mode like? Right? It's like you said something great, and I love that you said that. I was hoping that I'd get it out of you today, and it made it easy, so I didn't have to like push you to say words. I didn't have to force words out of your mouth from a different country away. But the idea was that the grind mode, it's not you have to work all day long on your thing, but work every day on your thing.
Yeah.
Someone said once, like, Mike, how many hours do you work in a day? And I was like, man, it matters what's happening, right? Like if we have a new launch coming up, I'm working more. Yeah. Right? If we don't have a new launch coming up, if it's happening, I'm working less. All right. I think the thing is that it's consistent because it's every day.
100%. It's also mastering your schedule. I think people get very lost with their schedule and their priorities. So you have to learn what is first off the most important things in your life. And then once you learn the most important things in your life, you have to, there's your buddy with the suits. Then you have to learn how to prioritize your schedule, how to study your schedule, learn your schedule. Because once you figure out and learn your schedule and prioritize it and block in certain things. So if you're launching something, like you said, I have it blocked in already. And I'm very, very consistent on my schedule being blocked to where if something's an hour, it's an hour. When it's done, we move on to the next things. If we're not done, we'll start it back tomorrow. So being very precise with your schedule and studying your schedule, I think is a huge, huge factor in succeeding with whatever plans you have, right?
Mm-hmm. I think also when we really learn how to, you know, what's funny is the last year, scheduling really became a focus of mine.
Yeah.
Because before that, I was just like, go, right? Like, I'll just go, right? And then when I figured out I didn't want to be just go, because if I can't, it's said all over, if I can't measure it, I can't manage it.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I couldn't measure my time. It's like the most valuable resource. Like our life is literally measured in it. And I couldn't measure my time. And I was just like, yo, this is ridiculous. Like I could be wasting my life. And I don't know, right? Because I have no way to measure anything I'm doing to be able to manage what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then since then, I've been trying to no longer just block schedule, but also then dive into that time spent. Was that time spent effective? Was it useful?
Yeah.
Right? Because I used to say like, oh, all right, here's 30 minutes for me, right? Like for my mindset, for me personally today, I'm going to take 30 minutes right now and just do my thing, right? And I would turn on a game or something. And then for 30 minutes, I'd be yelling at a screen. And I'm like, this wasn't good for me, right? Like, but no. It was, I had to measure that in order to manage that couldn't be when I'm like, hey, I'm taking 30 minutes for my mindset. I can't think about or do things that make me overreact or go to another level higher in a negative way, because then the rest of my day is gonna be like, rah, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I love you said that, and I think there's a huge thing right here is whence blocking time for yourself, because obviously if you're not at your highest vibration, your highest level, you're not going to be able to serve others. So first, and I always say this, as much as I put my family first on everything I do, I actually put myself atop of that. So my health, mentally, physically, spiritually, I put myself at a higher level first. Once I'm at a right vibration, right zone, which means is taking time for yourself. There's nothing wrong with taking a bubble bath. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with, and you know what? I love what you're saying, that you would play a video game and start screaming. What I like doing is minimal once a week. I take a good 2-hour gap, either on the weekend or something, and I'll put a movie on that I've watched 100 million times. Maybe Rocky 4. I've watched it 40, 50 times, and I'll put it on. I've watched that movie so many times, I don't have to think about it or worry about it. I'll sit, have a meal, have some popcorn, chill out. And that's real downtime, when you don't have to think about it. Or like you said, sometimes just listening to some music, going for a walk, and just put on your earbuds and just listen to some music, or go for a walk. Having that time where you're not having to think, I think is so valuable, and as Nicole says, essential, right? And I think that is the big thing. And as we get older, and how old are you, Michael?
38.
38.
I almost forgot when you asked me.
I'm 40. I'm 44, and for the last few years, I've really zoned in on the word time, and I've understood how time is now. It's a currency. It's a currency you're not going to get back. You can't trade. So I look at time right now, and I value it, because I look at my parents, and knock on wood, my parents are both still here with us, still healthy, but I'm like, their time is going. So I'm starting to value my time with my family a lot more. I'm starting to value my time. So due to that, I actually look at my schedule every week, and I'm now at the point where I study my schedule to the point where if there's things in my schedule, they're not going to validate me, bring me to another level, or benefit me or benefit my family, I take it on my schedule. So learning what to say no and how to pull things out of your schedule is another asset. As we get older, we value time so much, and you have to realize that that's the one thing we're not going to get back. So make sure you're making the most of it, right?
Dang right. Time is we've been saying this. Time is the greatest resource on earth, right? Because money, I can lose it all and get it all back.
100%, 100%, 100%.
Time, you take my time, it's a wrap. I can never. I don't know a way to get that back.
No.
And every day we get less of it.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I know. One day I'm closer not being here.
Yeah.
All right. I could live for 100, but I still am one day closer not being here.
Yeah. 100%. And as you get old, like I said, I'm 44, and I look at my life now. I'm looking at you have a teenage daughter too. You look at your kids, you look at the time with them, you look at everything in general. It's just, you appreciate those moments so much more. And when you're young, time's in abundance. You don't care about time when you're young. Now it's like how valuable it is. So I've learned how to say no to certain things. I've learned how to prioritize my time. I think is so important. Yes,
right.
Maria, you know is everything. I'm starting reading your messages now.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about this. You put the messages right up there. It's like we're all part of the show. Everybody's on the show. Like, it's not just us. Everybody's here. And the Unleashed, we go crazy. We're a dedicated group for the movement. So
there you go.
I love, and one of the things I love, it's been promoted a lot recently, is that no is a complete answer. Like, that's a complete sentence. No.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel all the time we're almost built into guilt, where it's like, if we say no, we have to explain why and make it acceptable for the other person why we said no to, rather than just saying no. It's like, that's not for me. Like, that's not what I can do right now. Right. And I think it's coming to that acceptance where it's like you said a couple minutes ago, you said that if we're not at our best, we can't serve our best.
Yeah.
That means we can't serve the people we love the best, our kids the best, our family the best, our community the best. We can't serve the best to anybody we try to serve if we're not at our best.
Yeah.
So it's what is the sleep that you need for your best? What kind of diet, right? What kind of, and I don't mean diet like don't eat meat. I mean, like, I don't know if that's really a diet, but it's like, I would say the one thing that's not really a diet. But it's like, what is the thing that eating what best serves you, right? Like, I don't think having 7 cupcakes best serves you. All right. And I used to be the guy that ate a whole box of Oreos a night. It didn't serve me. Yeah. I had to change that pattern because that pattern was going to hurt me. Yeah. All right. And it was hurting my output. All right. So it's, what are we inputting to best produce our output?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So I love that you brought that up. Now, some of the things that I know we have to get to today. So yes. Because if we didn't get to them today, I would be very upset with myself. All right. And I don't like being upset with me. It happens too often. All right. So you were building this business that was successful. Then you had to pivot from apparel, right, to equipment in that field. And then all of a sudden, as I hear your story, this is what went to my mind, at least. Huh? I could have made this all up, but there was a time where you were like, I'm killing it here, but I'm going to switch this up because my life showed me I had to. And when you told me this story, bro, when we first jumped on a call before we decided to do anything, when we were just on a call, when you told me the story, dude, I think I hung the phone and cried, right? Because it was just like, dude, it was sad and then happy tears because the way you led me through the story, I think you tried to make me like just utterly fall apart at one point. I was just like, damn, bro. And then you told me the end of the story. I'm like, oh, why do you say it like that?
You're just giving the whole story away already.
That resonated with me so much where I was like, I want to support and help this dude any way I freaking can because he's that guy. And I those guys, I love those guys. So walk us through that story a little bit that I just gave away.
So yeah, it was 2008, April 2008. At that point, life wasn't so perfect, and nothing's ever perfect. But I was one of those ultimate hustling entrepreneurs where I was just go. I was working crazy hours. I was in the office over hours, overtime. I would literally, my home time and my home life was very limited. And my daughter at that time was about 1.5 years old. My wife, I was married for about 3.5 years then. And my wife at that point was pregnant. She was 31 weeks pregnant. And it was a Friday afternoon where my wife was rushed to the hospital. Emergency section happened. There's so many stories in between that, but emergency section happened. And we almost lost my wife and my son the same time, at the same moment. It was, and every time I think about it, there's so many stories in between there. I'll give you a little brief ones in between where the doctors pulled me into a room and my wife was knocked out. She was seduced, and they looked at my son, and they looked at my son, and he had all these tubes in him, and they were trying to get his heart going again. And they looked at me and they said, listen, your son's probably got anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes left of life. I go, do you have a name for him to put on the birth certificate? And I didn't have a name at that point. We didn't even think of a name at that point. And I'm not a very religious person, but I do have my beliefs. And the first name that came to my head was Tiago, which means God's warrior. And I just wrote that down. And that's when his journey started. We are very blessed. We have one of the greatest hospitals in the world for children in Toronto. It's called Sick Kids Hospital. But that moment, the hospital was filled. They had no beds. So they said, listen, we're going to have to take him to a hospital in a place called Hamilton, where it would be an 1.5 hour drive. And they're like, realistically, he's not going to make it that far. On the drive there, to our blessing, but to another family's sadness, a baby passed away and a bed opened. And they did a UE and they were able to take him to Sick Kids. And that's when his journey started. And there's so many stories in there. He was 2.5 pounds, smallest baby in Sick Kids history to be on dialysis. And it was just story after story. 7 of his organs weren't functioning at birth. And we were put in the room 3 or 4 or 5 times. The doctors begging us to pull his cord, and I was like, "No, we're gonna keep doing it. We're gonna keep doing it." And I would sit by his bedside all day long for 4 months. Sick Kids became our pretty much our home. And that was my focus. My purpose was to get him out of the hospital. I stopped all my companies. I diminished my staff. I let everything run itself. And my focus, I turned off our answering services at home. We didn't get talk to any friends, any family. We told everybody, just give us our space. And be honest, I wasn't even talking to my wife. Me and my wife would get to the hospital. We would just sit beside each other all day. I would deal with all the doctors' meetings. I got so informed, and I studied my son's issues so much that I knew as much as the doctors knew. Every night I would go home and just study. And it was 4 months into his journey there, and he was still 4.5 pounds. The doctors didn't want to release him till he was 5 pounds. And I kind of forced the doctor's hands to release him. And at that point, he was still on feeding tubes, never swallowed in his life. So we took a baby home that was 4.5 pounds, never swallowed in his life. And we're giving it the diagnosis papers on his when his discharge, and the diagnosis was CP, cerebral palsy. And the doctor says because of his brain damage, he would be most likely confined to a wheelchair his whole life. And we took him home that night. And the next morning, I looked at my wife and I said, "Listen, I don't know what his future is. I don't know my son's future, but I just want to know one thing: is I cannot live with myself being 56 years old and look that I didn't give him every single resource, every single thing I possibly could." To give him a better opportunity for his future. And that's when our journey started. And everything we did, Michael, it was all wins. When he, at like 6 months old, when he first laughed, my daughter dropped something. I remember these moments. My daughter dropped something in the kitchen and my son just laughed for the first time. And it was just like, we all started crying. When he, a year and a half old, when he stood up and was able to balance himself, huge thing. And it was a whole process where I would spend hours and hours a day, every type of therapy, I brought every resource I possibly could. And he was almost 5 years old. We were able to transfer him into braces. And that was a big win too, being able to walk with braces. And I remember his first day, and this is a true story, his first day that he had to wear braces to school. He was 5 years old, if I'm not mistaken. And he was wearing shorts that day. It was a September day, beautiful weather, and he was crying. And I go into his room. He's like, "I'm so embarrassed to wear these to school, Dad." And my wife came to the room. She's like, "Listen, Tiago, put on some pants, get comfortable, and whatever. In a few days, you could slowly start showing people." I'm like, I grabbed by his arm and I said, I literally gave him a little shake and I said, "Listen, dude, you're going to love who you are. You're going to embrace who you are. And if you have an issue with these braces, you're going to do everything I tell you, and you're going to do everything you possibly can to get out of these braces." And I said, "You're wearing these to school today." And we took him to school. He cried, came home that night. This is my 5-year-old, looked at me in the face and says, "Dad, I want to do everything I can to get out of these braces." And that's when our journey really started, to the point where my 12-year-old is my workout partner. We work out 5 days a week together. And by his 12th birthday, he was supposed to be in braces till minimal 19. By his 12th birthday, he's out of his braces, and we're getting ready to run his first marathon. And I literally cannot keep up with him running right now. Physically, like, he beats me in a race at 12 years old. This kid is an absolute beast. And I post videos all the time of him running. So that has been our journey, and he's been our purpose. And the lessons my son's taught me, like, a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, you've done so much for your son." No. The lessons he's taught me, honestly, Michael, I'm a better man. I'm a better father. Everything I do is about him. I get goosebumps when I think about him. This kid is my world. And it's literally like he's my purpose now. Like, I have so many things that I want him to do that my journey has become almost his journey. And he's going to change the world for so many people. And I'm literally documenting his whole journey so far, to the point where part of his brain was damaged when he was a kid. And so his whole right side of his body had no function. So we've now been able to balance with weights, with therapy, balance his body. But he learned how to do everything with his left hand. So he's a little left-handed pitcher. And he's 96 pounds. He's throwing like 55 miles an hour at a lefty right now. So the goal is to get him, not to the major. The goal is, as we're documenting him, by the time he's 17, he could throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball as a lefty. So we're documenting all these journeys, how many races he's going to. There's so many things I want him to create and do in his life, that his path, when he gets there, he's going to change the world. He's going to inspire so many people. So that's essentially my journey right now with my son.
Bro, first, if you look up, you see his name on the screen. It's Jeff Lopes. I'll put it back so they can see it, because I have it was blocked. All right. And if you look at those videos, your son is flying. I was thinking, like, oh my God, this is such a heartwarming story. Let me go check this video. I turned the video. I'm like, oh my God, like, I forget a feel-good story now. This dude's a monster, right?
Yeah,
Like, I was like, how do you run like
it's
that?
so crazy. Is both my children and my daughter's the exact same way. They've embraced fitness from such a young age. And like I get home and my kids don't play video games. I'll literally get home and my kids are fighting over who could use the treadmill. That is our story of our lives. Like our family is like we're going for bike rides, we're going for power walks, and I try to separate their time because I really dedicated so much time to my son for so many years that my daughter was left out. And I didn't do that on purpose. I just had a very, to keep my business going, to keep my relationship with my wife going. Like my time was very sparingly with my daughter, even though I tried to be there for her. I was always there at every event for her, but a lot of attention was towards my son. And I'll give you, if you got 2 seconds, I'll give you a quick little story. My daughter, this is what an incredible kid this kid is she's 14 and she's been doing dance since she was 3 years old, and always doing dance. And through the whole journey, she kept doing dance, but it was just as a recreational thing, doing it once, twice a week for fun. And she came to me 3 years ago and she goes, Dad, and we're sitting there and she was like, can I ask you something? I go, yeah, of course, hon. She goes, I've been doing dance my whole life. She goes, you know how much I love dance. This kid would come home and she would train on her own for hours a day. And I was like, okay, yeah, of course. She goes, I know the competition and dance competition teams, that's a different level. It's a different, pretty much when you're dealing with dance competition level, there's so much time dedicated to the family, right? So I said, she came to me, she says, listen, I know dedicating time to dance and me to be on the competition team is going to be a lot of time for the family. She goes, but I've always wanted to do it, but I've never asked because I knew how much time Tiago needed. So my daughter put her at like 12 years old, put her wants aside for my son because she realized what he needed. So she came, she goes, listen, she goes, I want to show that I'm dedicated. She goes, do you mind if I try out for the part-time team? It's only going to be 2 competitions and 1 recital. And if I do well and I show I'm dedicated, then the year after I could try out for the full-time team. And I was like, of course. So she tried out for the part-time team. I never realized how good she was. She destroyed 2 competitions, got platinum in both. So of course I had no choice but to allow her to try for the full-time team now. So the next year she tried out for the full-time team, made the full-time team, which we were all shocked. We didn't even realize how good she was even to make that full-time team. She came to me a couple days later. She goes, Dad, there's a high performance team in Toronto and it's gonna be about 400 or 500 girls. It's like $40 a trial for the trial. She goes, I know I'm not gonna make it. I just want to go for the actual just to actually be able to try it and see what happens. And I'm like, okay, no problem, Sierra. So she went to the trials. I sat in the car for 2-3 hours while she was doing the trials. And all of a sudden she came back out of the trials. She goes, I think I did okay, Dad. I'm like, that's cool. So a week passed, 2 weeks passed. I'm like, whatever, no, not a big deal. I get a phone call. Guess what? My daughter made this high performance team, which is insane. And what I did with her, we were so happy, but I wanted to surprise her. So I actually took her to Starbucks down the street, went for a coffee, me and her, coffee. She went for a drink. And I got the girl at Starbucks to write on the cup, you made the sip team. So she's drinking her drink. And I'm like, Sarah, what's that on your cup? She looks at her cup and she starts bawling. And I did a post on this, right? I took a picture of her. And this kid at 12 years old put what she wanted aside for her brother all those years. And then fast forward 2 years, grade 8, she just graduated grade 8. And because of the whole COVID, it was a virtual graduation. So we didn't even know. She's always been an A student. Like she's always been like the perfect kid. Nothing could go wrong with this kid. And so we were waiting for her graduation and we had all the family over. It was virtual graduation on TV. And all of a sudden the principal comes up and starts giving awards out. And it's like, oh, honor roll. And it was like, Sierra Lopes is on the honor roll. We're like, wow, she's on the honor roll. And then all of a sudden, we hear this other thing, and they're like, oh, we have one more award to be awarded tonight. And it's for the best sibling that takes care of her sibling the most in front as a great representative for sibling. And my daughter wins sibling of the year. How crazy is that? Like, it's just as a dad, like I was just involved. I was tearing up. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. So I did something right, even though I probably should have been a lot more present with my daughter. But man, this kid is a rock star. And I sit there and it's like, I'm so proud of my kids. They're both just amazing. And everything I do is for them. And be honest, even my properties and all that stuff, we talked about True Blue Homes. Everything I've done, Michael, has been with them in mind. When I buy a property, I actually buy 2 of everything. So I got 2 studios by the mountain. I got 2 floor lofts by everything. When I bought the resort, I'm building a resort right now. It was actually 2 properties. I joined into one. They're equal land. So if they ever want to separate it one day, they could. So everything I've done is buy 2 of everything. So if something were to happen to me one day, they're taken care of. They're both, they can sit back and enjoy life if they really want to. So that has been a huge thing with my children as well.
I can listen to these stories.
Oh, sorry, go.
I could listen to these stories all day, man. So I love to bring. I'm like one of the best. Like, I'm not saying nothing about some people I know, right?
Yeah.
And then I just like spring them on the community, and they're just like, "Oh my God, why didn't you never tell me about this person?" I swear, I probably have like 8 people already. Like, why didn't I know you knew him? Why didn't we hear the story? And blah blah blah. And I'm like, and it's because these moments, because when you tell that story, there's such power to it, man. Right? Like that's that. And I love you said I must have did something right, because you always love to lowball yourself for some reason, but it's damn right you did something right. All right. And you created these amazing little souls that are becoming bigger and greater souls. That I love what you said. It's like, I used to think I had to change the world. All right. I used to put that on my plate. And now because of my daughter, I know I created the person that's going to change the world.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like when you were talking about your kids, it was like that same feeling. It was just like, it was almost like I said, I was telling my daughter, I got a relief. She was like, well, I was like, because I didn't have to do it. You do. Right. Yeah. And she's like, well, way to put it on me, Dad. Right? I'm like, you're 17. I barely like you. No. Right. But that's so I love the way you talk about your family, and I love the way you handle yourself with your family. And even from going and creating 2 of, so you know they're both great, they're both fine, they both have choices in their life to do with what they want.
Yeah, 100%.
With the life that you help create. So I really I love when you talk about that stuff. And that was the thing that really, it's like when you talked about business, I was just like, cool, right? Like, way to go, Clubhouse guy, right? No, I'm kidding. But no. when you talked about life to me, that's when I was just like, this is my dude. All right. And as soon as we started talking about life, it was like everything changed in our conversation to me. Because then I was just like, yo, how can I serve? How can I help? Right? Like, how can I just be any sliver of a part of this thing? Right. And Canada's not going to help us this year. But we have some big plans. We're going to do some crazy things. And I'm excited to have us do that together because and the Unleashed community is going to meet you. That's as far as I'll go. That's any hint of anything happening is the Unleashed community will have a chance to meet you and not just through a screen, which is going to be freaking awesome. So when do you and your son run the marathon?
Right now, with COVID, everything keeps getting bumped and everything. It'll be we're looking at probably July if everything goes right. So we're going to be doing that right now. That's what it's set for. But it's just everything we do is just little goals to each other, right? It's just little goals. And I think that's very important, even as parents, is setting little goals for your kids already, teaching them how to pick an objective goal and being able to obtain it, right? I mean, I'll give you a little 2-second thing. Even my daughter, a few years back, she had to do a public, or what do you want to call it, a public speaking in front of her school and in front of her class, and she was terrified. And she's like, Dad, I can't do this. I can't talk in front of my classmates. And I said, okay, Sierra, I go, let's figure this out together. So we sat there and I said, let's write something out. I'm going to help you write it out. So we wrote something out, and I said, listen, for the next week, we're going to film you saying it. We're going to make you do it in front of the your grandparents. We're going to make you do it in front of the neighbors. And she's like, what? And I forced her to do it. So she got comfortable. All of a sudden she went in front of her school and she did well. Teacher called and said, listen, I like to nominate her to go in front of her class. And then I said, no, I'd like to nominate her to go in front of her school. They have a little competition. I said, see, you're ready. Let's do this. She went in front of her school. She won. All of a sudden she had to go in front of the board. She won. She ended up representing the board to going to Ontario, the province-wide, and out of 1,750 kids, 4 weeks later, she finished 3rd in a public speaking gig. So it's just like being, as a parent, you have to be able to push them through their fears. and set goals for them and be like, hey, this is a goal for you. And if they could start from a young age being able to obtain those goals and get all those little wins, as they get older, they get more confidence, more able to do it on their own, right? So those are all things as parents we have to control and be able to give them the confidence and break the fear at a very young age, right?
Brother, I love what you're talking about now. You're getting me a little too juiced for this conversation. I'm getting a little too hyped. So I have so many things I want to ask from that, right?
Yeah.
So one, first, I love how you bring in the science of momentum, because momentum's like, I hate momentum, the idea of momentum, because people are like, well, they just got momentum and then they're going to do good, right? And it's like in sports, I always used to laugh because they're like, 7 innings of momentum can be turned by 2 innings, right? And I'm like, so how powerful is momentum? Like, please stop talking to me. But the science behind momentum you just hit on, which is that belief turns into action. Yeah. Right. Then we get a result, and that makes us believe what our potential is. And then it goes back into our belief, right? And we just keep that cycle going. So the more wins we chalk up, right, by the action we took, that makes us believe we can do more. So we're willing to try more. So we're willing to get more. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I love that you brought that up, because I think that's so important for us to remember. I think all too often we let those outside results and little naysayers and haters and comments and fear keep us from taking the action that we need to take in order to get the win we're trying to get. So when we don't get the win, and automatically we're like, we're not good enough. Yeah. Yeah. When I'm like, easy, right? Like, no, now you might not be now, right? Like, I wasn't always at the level to pull this off, but if I didn't go and keep going to learn, right, and grow through experience, through applied theory to figure out what worked for me and didn't work for me, I would never be able to get to that point. Yeah. Right. So you got to do that to get to it. And you talked about, I'm going to like stack 18 questions. You can just run with it out. Yeah. And then you talked about with your kids about that. I always think there's like this fine dance, right, that we have to do where it's push, because we need them to break through some barriers. Yeah. So one, they know they can, right? They're going to have to break through barriers in their life. And 2, so they grow as people. Yeah. Right. And while also not doing it in a way where it's like, I became a terror. So it's, what does that look like to you?
Okay. So I'm going to be a little rundown how my mindset with breaking barriers. And it all goes back to the same word we've probably used 3 or 4 times in this podcast, is fear. I mean, fear is not something you're born with. Fear is something you obtain, and you always hear it, and you hear people always talking about the same thing. It's like when you're young, your mom would be like, hey, don't touch the stove, you're going to burn your hand, or don't run down the stairs, you're going to fall. Fear is taught to us as we are growing up. And as we get older, that fear becomes more real, because now that fear turns into, I don't want to apply for a job, or I don't want to start my own business, because it's that fear of failure. Because that failure side sucks. And that's one thing I do with my kids, is I teach them to embrace. And there's actually a book right now where Brent Gleason, a friend of mine, embrace the suck. Like, learn how to embrace the suck, because nothing is always going to be perfect. Right. So it's okay to fail, but learn from your failure. So I'll give you another little analogy. Like, my daughter, she did last year of full comp team, and one of the competitions she finished 3rd. And she came home. She was like, Dad, I thought I could have won. I should have won. And I'm like, okay, I want you to do something, Sierra. I go, it's okay to finish 3rd one time. You got to learn from this. So I want you to do is grab the video and see the 2nd place, see the 1st place, and study both of them and see exactly what they did to get them 2nd and 3rd. And then I want to watch your video over and over and study what you did wrong. Learn from it. So when you go there next time, it's not going to be a 3rd. It's going to be a 2nd. I think we live in a society where parents, teachers, coaches, everything is about the participation ribbon. You enter a school event, everybody gets a participation ribbon and everybody's award. Little Johnny did really great. You tried today, Johnny. No, you got to teach your kids to be winners from a young age and teach them to embrace failing, but learn from it. So I think those are very important things as parents, is we got to be able to push our kids and make sure they understand that winning is everything in this world. As much as people say it's not everything, yeah, you want to have that mindset. Every time you go into a job, you're going to get that job. Every time you go into every time you go into a business, I want to be the top of my business. When I started Comoreware, there is 6 companies in Canada that did exactly what I did and were embraced and doing well in their industry. And I looked at my staff when we first started. It was a small staff. I said, listen, see these 6 companies? I put them on the board. I go, all these will be bankrupt within a 6-year period. By year 5, they're all bankrupt. They were all out of business. We took all their business. And it's not me being that. It was my mindset is I want to be the best. And I'm going to figure out a way to be the best. And you got to, as your parents, we have to instill that in our children. You guys want to win. If you don't win, embrace the pain of the suffer of the loss and figure out what you did wrong, and let's get better at it. And always every day we're 1%, every day 1% better, 1% better, 1% better. And no matter what they're doing, whether it's education, whether it's a sport, whether it's dance, whatever it is, they're always trying to get better at it.
Right. Dude, I love that you said that. And one of the things we do with the Unleash community, AJ Vassar created, where we have fail goals.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain many time we want to fail every week.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's funny. We jump on a call every Monday, actually. It'll be today. And one of the things we talk about is like, hey, listen, we got like 100 we got 100 no's. Like we're doing something. Yeah. Right. And it's because like all too often what happens is you get a couple of those no's, you start going, oh, I can't do this. All right. I take it back. Like there's a couple things I did in business life that really helped me in business life that was miserable. Right. Like door-to-door sales. Fucking miserable, man.
But
right?
But that not make you who you are today?
Oh, it made me wear Jesus, I have much thick skin because of it. Like that's like when people talk trash to me, I'm like, no one says any more rude shit than when I knocked on their door trying to sell them a household collectible. Right. So I intruded their place of peace, I felt like. Right. And then cold calling. Yeah. Right. And the worst part was the first time I did cold calling, it was for a political election. Yeah. So it was even worse because God forbid they even thought I was for the other side, which I don't even get involved in politics. They even thought I was on the other side. They would land base me thinking they knew who I was about all the things this person stood for or did. Got a parking ticket once. Bastard didn't put a quarter in the machine. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I just want to know if you voted. Like, I'm just doing a polling to see the voting percentage. Like, I don't care who you voted for, and I don't even know who ran. Can you just please tell me? Like, I don't even live in the area in which you voted. Like, I don't care, please. Right. But those things, you develop things. Right. And we have to, I think we all want to be forged, but we don't want to touch the fire.
Yeah.
And there's only one way, to be forged, right? Like we're forged by the fire. We rise from the ashes, but to rise from the ashes, we have to be burnt.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And it's that thing, it holds us back from claiming our greatness, right? From what we're really here to do I believe we're here for many different purposes, but the more we hold ourselves back, the less we live those purposes. Yeah. And what kind of life does that look like? Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I just kept talking.
There's two things. No, there's two things I'm trying to jump on there. But one of them is going back to the sales. I think I think sales is probably the number one tool that we don't teach our kids. And it's the number one tool they're going to use every single day, their whole life. Doesn't matter where you are, you're selling yourself or you're trying to sell something. So I think that's a great tool. And if you do sales from a very young age, like I was doing sales training. I was standing in front of 200-300 people at 19, 20 years old, running a consulting company, teaching sales. If you learn how to do sales and do it from a very young age, all those no's you hear, it becomes nothing to you. It's like, who cares? Next. And you learn to accept that and move on very quickly and not dwindle on it. I think sales is a great tool. And I always tell people, if you're going to do for one of your first jobs, you're going to do any job and work for somebody, do sales. Learn how to sell something, master sales, how to build commonality, how to build rapport with people. I think it's so important. And what you're saying there is going back to the parents. As parents, leading by example. I think that's a huge thing that we even talk about is leading by example. Like if I tell my kids, my son, you got to run a marathon, guess what? I'm going to be right by his side running with him. If I tell my daughter we're going to go, you need to do A, B, and C to get better in your dance, we're running hills together. The other day on Friday, she was like, I got to get this better. We went and did lunges up hills for like an hour. I almost cried on Saturday. I couldn't sit on the toilet because she had and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be there by her side, pushing her. So it's one of those things where as parents, we have to lead by example. Don't be that overweight dad telling your kid to go work out, or don't be that guy that's scared to take opportunity and chances and then telling your son, go try out for the baseball team. Are you scared to go open up your own business? Like, lead by example. Show them it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to take chances and opportunities in this world, right?
Dang right. One of the things I love to talk about too is like, I talk to my daughter a lot about regrets.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I don't want her to have them. Right. So if you can limit the amount of regrets you have, that's less bearing on your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. Can I jump on that?
Yeah.
I love that.
Because I saw your smile. I was like, yeah, something
I've taken to heart so much in the last year or so. And I live with zero regrets. Having that mindset, if we could all live with zero regrets, Michael, and understand where, when I mean zero regrets, live as if there's no tomorrow. Today's our last day on this earth. If today was the last day on this earth, how would we react? And in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've really taken that in. So I'll give you an example. Like my parents live about half an hour away. My dad will give me a call and be like, Jeff, I need A, B, and C done, or I need this. Can you help me with this? I'd be like, on a Tuesday, okay, Dad, I'll be there on Saturday. Now, my dad calls me and says, Jeff, I need this. Guess what? Jeff's dropping whatever he has to do and he's going there, because I never want to have that mindset where I walked home and I got that phone call, something happened to my dad, and I regretted the rest of my life that I didn't go see him. So now I live with zero regrets. I'm 44. I call my mom every morning, and I call my mom before I go to bed every night. And I'm proud of it, being a mama's boy, because I live with zero regrets. If I have something to do, I do it. If I'm talking to you and my kids were to call me right now, I'd be like, okay, hold on to this podcast for me. I'm going to pick up the phone, because you don't want to have that moment in your life where it's like, shit, why didn't I do that? So I try, and you're always going to have those moments. Don't get me wrong. No one's perfect, but I try to eliminate as much as possible with the regret department. So if I see an opportunity to do something, I take it. If I want to do something, I do it. Right. So live. If your audience takes anything out of this whole conversation today, try to live with zero regrets, because it's the most powerful and just the most heartwarming thing, because you're going to feel good. One day that'll be that moment you're like, thank God I did this. Mm-hmm. So live with zero regrets every single day.
Dude, I love that. All right. Dude, the way your face lit up when I said it, I was like, oh, he's going to drop something good here. And I'm sure they took a lot of things from this conversation. When you were like, if they took one thing, if you only took one thing, you weren't listening. All right. And it's funny. It's all about your approach, right? When you do it, because, right. Like I remember, my dad was you were doing it the right way. You were doing it at a high level. Yeah. Right. And there was approaches where it was just like, Jesus, shut up. Right. Like, give me a freaking break. Right. But there was also approaches he did where I wouldn't even know what he was doing. But when I got older, I was like, aha. Right. Like he would explain a situation with a partner he had, or a friend he had, or someone in his life. But he was explaining a situation I was going through, but he was saying it in story form of his. So I wasn't defensive. Yeah. Right. Or watching John Stockton on the court and saying like, look at the way he saw this backdoor cut. Right. So now I'm watching John, but now what I'm doing is I'm learning how to throw the backdoor cut pass. Yeah. Right. So it was just some of the ways he did it. Indirect. Right. So it's not right. It's making it where the person wasn't necessarily defensive, because you weren't coming at. Now there was times he came right at me. Right. And I did get defensive. So it makes completely sense why he started adjusting the pattern and being like, I just want the result.
There is crazy as parents how we indirectly mentor our kids. That could be a positive, but that could be a negative thing. I'm going to give you a pure opposite, a negative side of it. Call your mom every day. Love it. Exactly. I'm going to give you a negative side, not a negative side. It's just a lesson as parents. So I was with my son. This is going on about 6 months, 5 months ago. There's an indoor facility right by our place it's like a 13,000 square foot indoor baseball facility. So we were there. He was doing a bullpen pitching. I was catching. Daddy's on broken knees, trying to be a back catcher. So I'm playing catcher. So we had the radar gun on him, and he's doing really well. And these two boys came in. They're about 15, 16. Don't play baseball. They're just there to hit the batting cage or whatever. I'm like, cool. They're watching. So they're watching my son. And then when we're done, they're like, oh, cool. Could I use your radar gun? I want to see how hard I throw. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I gave them the radar gun. We're cleaning up, and they're just throwing the ball and timing. Just some kids playing around, right? Seeing how hard they throw. They came to us, and when they were done, like, thank you, sir. They gave me the radar gun. And I said, how'd you do? And then one of them like, oh, I threw 41. The other said I threw 43 miles an hour. And these kids are like 15, 16. And I looked at them, I go, my son's 12, and he's throwing 50, almost 55. And they're like, wow. And then, but they were quiet. They walked away. Put the gun away, went in the car. We're driving home. My son's so quiet. This is my 12-year. He's so quiet. I'm going, what's wrong, T? He's like, can I say something to you, Dad? And I go, yeah, of course. And he's like, what you said back there really bothered me. I'm like, what did I say back there? He goes, you've told me my whole life not to compare myself to other people and be my own person and respect everybody fairly and equally. And I'm like, of course. He goes, by you comparing those boys to me, you're putting them down, and you made them feel inferior about what you said to them. And I was like, what the hell just happened here? My 12-year-old just gave me a lesson. And I was just like, wow. And I was like, all I said was, I apologize. You're 100% right. And I was like, I drove home and I'm like, wow. And it's just those lessons, like you're indirectly mentoring your kids even when you don't realize it. And I'll give you another example. When I was a kid, I was the kid. My dad would be like, hey, I lived in downtown Toronto. It was a very multicultural area. And anytime there was an old lady down the street with like her groceries, my dad would be like, yo, go help that lady take her groceries home. Or we'd be going to mall. My dad would be always like, stop and hold that door for that person and smile at them and look them in the face and smile at them. He would do those things, and it just became routine to me. Now I do them to my kids, and it becomes routine to them. That was indirectly teaching you so many lessons, right? So as parents, there's positive and negative indirect mentoring we can do. So we got to be very careful, because the kids are watching everything we're doing. How we talk to our spouse, how do we talk to our wives, how do we talk to our partners, how do we talk to people, how do we interact with people at the store? Your kids are watching this all, and they're learning from you. So indirect mentoring is such a huge thing. So you got to be very aware of how you treat and how you act around your kids at all times.
That's tough. Now I'm just thinking about times where I was like, dang, maybe I should have did different. Put me in the regret locker. Jesus. No, but it's so true. It's I used to have to do a drive with my daughter like every other Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. And we would go into this. It was, I don't know if you have Wawas or not, but they're like amazing. Right. Yeah. But there was this Wawa. They're also known as gas stations.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But it was an amazing gas station named Wawa. And we would go, and every time there'd be a guy there that was, having some hard times and wanted to try to, get help. Right. Yeah. And rather than just put a hand out or anything like that, he would hold the door and say, "Welcome to Wawa." And he would, like you said, he would look you right in the face, have a huge smile. And every time I'd be like, "Thank you so much." And I would slide him a little cash.
Yeah.
Right. And one day my daughter, this was like 2 years ago, we're going to a basketball game. I'm in a hurry.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm like, I can't be late. Like, I'm a coach. Like, it's real bad if you're late as a coach.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like, way to have a priority, brother. Like, right. Way to fulfill your commitments. Right. And I'm rushing through, and I have to stop at Wawa because I grab some of the players certain things to have to be able to drink and fruit to eat before games. And I didn't even pay attention to the guy door. And my daughter stopped me and said, you didn't give that man anything. I was just like, damn it. Okay. All right. So I went back. I was like, hey, here. Yeah. Sorry. All right. I was too busy. I was too focused. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right. And then I got in the car, and she was like, that's better. I was just like, Jesus Christ. But after the game, I was just sitting in the locker room, and I was just like, that's really cool that my daughter saw that for you and then called me on my own.
Yeah. Your own crowd.
Right?
Yeah. 100%.
Right. All right. So it was just like, so she has that thing. And my daughter's a warrior for people that she feels aren't getting, that aren't being held at their worth on this earth. And it's like, I'm always like, all right, as much as that drives me crazy at times,
Yeah.
because I think she thinks she's 30
Yeah.
doing these things. And, but I'm like she got it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like those moments where you see that your kid got it, you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Right. Like
It's a
I didn't do all awful.
No, of course not. It's a proud moment, right? It's those moments where it's just like, you know, I mean, as parents, I think we all want to be in that spot of that moment where it's like, if something were to happen to me today, our kids are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And I started that very young with my kids. And that was because I didn't know my son's future, right? I didn't know with his brain damage, would he be able to, like, where his future was going to be held. So I made sure financially he would be taken care of. If something were to happen to me today, he would be okay the rest of his life. I made sure I did what I had to do to get there. But now as I get older, you're starting to see all these things they're doing. Like my kids like my 12-year-old son and my 14-year-old daughter, they do laundry, they cook. My daughter, I get home and my daughter has dinner ready for me and my wife. And I'm not exaggerating about that. And it's being able to, I'm teaching her all these life tools. Like I'm a European guy and coming from an old school European family. My dad cooked more than my mom at home. So I saw that. My dad, I would see that growing up where European families, usually the mom's the one that cooks, the mom's the one that cleans. No, it was the opposite. My dad did as much, if not more, than my mom at home. So, right. and he worked a blue collar job. He was a factory worker working at Ford 2 weeks day, 2 weeks night. But when he was home, he was present. He was always around us. And he made sure he had time for us. So I had a great childhood. We didn't have much, right. But I mean, I never felt like I missed anything, right?
Right. I think one thing you said right there is key. You said I always wanted to make sure they were taken care of. Yeah. Right. That they would be good. And all too often we look at that as the financial situation, right?
No. Yeah.
But I think what you really turned me on to this conversation, a lot of it was that it's also here.
100%.
All right. Are they set up here to have 100%. The life that and live the life and be part of society and community and do the things that advances and pushes things forward for more rather than hold us back.
Yeah.
And it's funny how much has shifted from, hey, I need to make sure there's a bank account, right? Yeah. Or assets, right? Investments that they can have and be like, all right, they're protected. Yeah. But then it's no, we invested, the investment was really in their heart and the person they are, because that's really the impact which they'll have in life. The other part is a tool they can use to have that impact.
100%, 100%.
All right. So I love that. I love how that shifted.
Yeah. And it'll probably shift how many more times, as long as not going to long life, right? But it's right. You're constantly shifting, you're constantly growing. I mean, that's one thing as humans we have to embrace, and it's something we have to be able to handle. Constant change, right? As long as we can handle constant change and prepare our kids to handle constant change, we're constantly in the right direction, right?
All right. I started this by saying the originator of the pivot, and we just ended with him saying how he originated the pivot. Right? You're all welcome. All right. But Jeff, we've been going over an hour, and if you take the time we talked before the show, we go over an hour and a half. Tell everybody before we start wrapping up, tell everybody like where they can find you, where they can find your podcast, what it's about, what you're about. I mean, I know you're everywhere. Your Instagram story is amazing. Like I find myself like weirdly stalking it. I've watched your story on the same day multiple times. I was just like, I actually had to ask our guy that does our digital part. I was like, hey, if you watch someone's story multiple times, do they get notified that you watched it multiple times? He was like, no, why? I was like, thank God, because I've stalked this dude's story so much. You can be like, yo, Mike's a freak. And but you can't see how many times I watched it, so joke's on you. But tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast and what you're about, what your podcast is about.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Jeff Knows Inc. You can see it behind me, Jeff Knows Inc. It's an entrepreneurial podcast, but it's more than entrepreneurial podcast. It's just like we did today. I just love stories. I love hearing people's stories. I love having people. I had you back, Maria. I love just getting real stories out of people. I love having conversations, and the bare fact that you can have an open conversation with somebody and not only learn from them, but you're giving the audience a lesson through the process is such a wonderful tool. So that is Jeff Knows Inc. You can catch me on all the platforms. Easiest way to get a hold of me is through IG. Instagram is at Jeff Lopes, and DM me any questions. Everyone want to hook up, talk, whatever, have virtual coffee. I'm open to meeting everybody. I love just interacting with as many people as I possibly can. And that hookup didn't sound really good there, but we'll let that one go. And if you're an entrepreneurial dad, there's something we didn't even talk about, but we'll throw it in there quickly. If you're an entrepreneurial dad, I love coaching entrepreneurial dads, finding balance and finding a purpose in your life. So you can hit me up at jeffreylopes.com. It's JeffreyLopes.com. That's pretty much it, brother. I appreciate you, man. This is fun.
I just literally learned I said your last name wrong a million times.
Yeah. I mean, I say Lopes, Lopez, whatever. It depends on who I'm around.
Lopez.
Yeah. Lopez is with his Z in Spanish.
Yeah, that's why I say that's why I said Lopez.
Yeah. It's Lopes.
All right. So now that I know that at the end of the show, that's fantastic. I love when someone says their name and I'm like, butcher that shit. If you know it, what you will learn about me is I butcher names, movies, and songs like it's going out of style. And at one point, one of the guys with me was like, like when you butcher someone's name, they kind of get like, it's like you're not showing enough respect. Like, so I was like, so after that, I was like, oh shit, like they feel I've been disrespectful all this time. So like I try really hard. And when I said your name, when I was practicing saying your name, I was getting off saying Lopez. I was saying Lopez. And then it was like Lopes. I'm like, damn it! I did all that practice and still said it wrong. Right? But Jeff, no lie, man. I absolutely love your heart. I love what you're about. You as a man, I don't care what you're doing in the business world, even though you're doing amazing things. You as a person, I dig. Right. So any way our community, any way we can do anything to help serve, push, advance. Let me know when the marathon's happening. If it's live, I'll put it live. Canada won't let me in, but I said I would go support and be there near the finish line or help you to get to the finish line, one or the other, whatever you need. But we'll have to do it from a distance. And I cannot wait for everybody, including myself, to be able to hang and vibe in person, which hopefully will be here. And we get enough time in this earth to do so. And but thank you again. I know how valuable your time is and how you section that off. So thank you for giving us such an amount of it and speaking life into us today. So we appreciate you being here, brother.
I appreciate you, Mike. I mean, you're just you're authentic. That's the easiest way to authentic and surround yourself around authentic, real people that are obviously doing great things in this world is very important to me. And yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate this platform. I appreciate you, man.
All right. I love that people now call people authentic. Like, you're so authentic. It used to be, you're weird as shit. Right? How do you get to be so weird? No, you're just authentic, bro.
you're being yourself, right? I mean, that's and we talked about this before. It's just we live in a world where people are not themselves, and when you do meet somebody that's themselves, and it's just, this is who I am, even when the camera's off, that's a good thing. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you again. And for all the Unleashed, you know the deal. Unleash your hustle. Go show the world your greatness. Paint your masterpiece. Peace, love, and happiness. Until next time, peace. We out. It's better when it's just a microphone. When they're on camera, it's weird that I do my own echo, right? We out.